The small scout ship shuddered as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across the control panel, bathing the cockpit in an angry red glow. Raya's hands moved quickly over the controls, but she knew it was already too late. The damage to the ship's systems was too severe. Emergency landing protocols engaged, the ship's computer announced in its calm voice. Warning, multiple system failures detected. Rhea fought to keep her breathing steady as the ground rushed up to meet her. She was a medical trainee, not a pilot. The scout mission was supposed to be simple: observe the primitive planet from orbit, collect data about their medical practices, and return home. No one had expected the micro-meteor storm that had torn through her ship's hull. The trees below grew larger with each passing second. Raya could see mountains in the distance, their peaks covered in white snow even though it was summer. Her ship's computer had chosen this remote area for the crash landing, following its programming to avoid detection by the local species. Impact in 10 seconds, the computer announced. Survival probability: 63%. Raya closed her eyes and thought of home. The medical academy where she had studied. The concerned faces of her instructors when they had discovered her genetic condition. The terminal illness that would slowly shut down her organs, one by one. They had given her 5 years to live. That was 2 years ago. The impact came suddenly. Metal screamed against metal as the ship plowed through the forest canopy. Raya felt herself thrown against her restraints, the safety gel in her seat hardening to protect her from the worst of the crash. There was a final, thunderous crash, and then silence. When Rhea opened her eyes, sunlight was streaming through the cracked viewport. Smoke rose from the ship's ruined engines, and through the gaps in the hull, she could see green leaves moving in the wind. She was alive. Her medical training kicked in automatically. She ran a self-diagnostic using her neural implant. 3 cracked ribs, minor internal bruising, but nothing life-threatening. The ship's medical bay, however, was completely destroyed. Her heart sank as she checked the small medical pouch at her belt. Only 3 doses of her medication remained. Without the medication, her genetic condition would progress rapidly. Her species' advanced medical technology had kept her alive this long, but now she was stranded on a primitive world with only days to live. Raya forced herself to remain calm and think logically. The emergency beacon was working. Help would come, but it would take at least 5 days for the nearest rescue ship to reach her. She had only 3 days of medication left. The math was simple and terrifying. She pulled herself from the wreckage of her ship, wincing at the pain in her ribs. The air was thin here. She must be at a high altitude. Around her, the forest stretched endlessly in every direction. The ship had carved a long groove through the trees before coming to rest against a large boulder. Her scanner showed her the atmospheric composition was safe for her to breathe, though the oxygen content was higher than she was used to. The local star, the humans called it the sun, was warm on her blue-tinted skin. Under different circumstances, she might have found this world beautiful. Raya set up the emergency shelter from her survival kit. The local wildlife might be dangerous, and she needed protection while she waited for rescue. As she worked, she tried not to think about her dwindling supply of medication or the symptoms that would begin once it ran out. The sun was setting when she heard the first distant sound of human machinery. Some kind of ground vehicle, her scanner told her. She should hide. Contact with primitive species was strictly forbidden. But as she felt the familiar pain beginning in her chest, Raya realized she might not have a choice. If she wanted to survive, she would need help. And on this primitive world, she had no idea where she might find it. The sound of the vehicle grew closer, and Raya made her decision. Sometimes survival meant breaking the rules. She just hoped the humans were as advanced in medicine as the recent observation reports suggested. Her life might depend on it. Tom Miller had been a wilderness medic for 15 years, but he'd never seen anything like this. He stopped his rescue ATV at the edge of a long gash in the forest floor, eyes wide as he took in the scene before him. Metal debris scattered through broken trees led to what could only be described as a spacecraft. He pulled out his radio, then slowly lowered it again. Something made him hesitate. Years of medical work had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, those instincts were telling him to wait. The evening sun cast long shadows through the trees as he approached the crash site. His medical kit bounced against his back with each careful step. The metal of the craft had a strange, almost living quality to it, with surfaces that seemed to shift color as he moved. "Hello," he called out, keeping his voice calm and steady, the same tone he used with injured hikers. "I'm a medical responder. Is anyone hurt?" Movement caught his eye. Something, was watching him from behind a shimmering field of energy. The figure was humanoid, but clearly not human. Blue-tinted skin, large eyes, and delicate features that seemed almost crystalline. The alien's gaze fixed on the medical cross on his jacket. Tom saw recognition in those strange eyes. Slowly, the figure held up what looked like a medical scanner, similar to the ones he used, but far more advanced. "You're a doctor too, aren't you?" Tom said softly, pointing to his medical symbol, then to the alien's device, a healer. The alien stepped forward, the energy field disappearing. Tom was fairly certain the alien was female, swayed slightly. His medical training kicked in immediately. The way she held herself, the slight tremor in her hands, the labored breathing. All signs he recognized from years of treating people in distress. "You're sick," he said, taking a careful step forward. He held his hands up to show he meant no harm. "Let me help." The alien spoke, her voice musical but filled with pain. Though he couldn't understand the words, he recognized the universal sound of someone trying to be brave while suffering. She held out a small device that projected an image. Medical readings, he realized. Even in an alien language, he could recognize vital signs. Tom pointed to himself. "Tom," he said clearly, then touched his medical kit. "Doctor, help." The alien seemed to understand. She pointed to herself. "Raya." Then she showed him another projection, this one clearly showing a medical countdown of some kind. 3 units, counting down. Tom didn't need to understand the language to know what that meant. She was running out of time. A sound in the distance made them both turn. Helicopter rotors. Someone else must have spotted the crash. Tom made a quick decision. Standard procedure would be to call this in, but standard procedure had never covered finding a sick alien who was clearly reaching out to him as a fellow medical professional. He pointed to his ATV, then to Rhea, then to the sound of the approaching helicopter. She understood immediately. Gathering what looked like medical supplies from a crash site, she followed him to his vehicle. The sun had set by the time they reached his cabin. Tom had chosen this posting specifically for its isolation. The nearest town was 2 hours away. Now he was grateful for that privacy. He helped Rhea inside, noting how she scanned his basic medical equipment with what seemed like fascination. Using gestures and medical diagrams, they began to communicate. Rhea showed him more detailed scans of her condition. Tom recognized the pattern. It was similar to a rare human genetic disorder he'd studied in medical school. Different in its alien manifestation, but the underlying principle was the same. As he began setting up his medical equipment, Tom realized he was probably breaking a dozen laws and protocols. But when he saw Rhea connect her alien medical scanner to his old laptop, bringing up detailed diagnostic readings, he knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes being a doctor meant following the rules, but sometimes it meant remembering that the duty to heal came first, no matter where your patient came from. The first rays of morning sunlight streamed through the cabin windows as Tom studied the medical diagrams on his laptop screen. He had been up all night, comparing Rhea's alien medical data with human genetic disorders. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, forgotten as he dove deeper into the mystery of her condition. Rhea sat across from him, her blue-tinted skin looking paler in the morning light. She had taken her second-to-last dose of medication the night before. The effect was wearing off already. Tom could see the tremors in her hands getting worse. They had spent the night developing a way to communicate. Raya's tablet could translate some basic medical terms, and they had created a simple system using pictures and diagrams. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough for Tom to understand the basics of her condition. "Your people's medicine," Tom said slowly, pointing to her tablet's medical database. "It's amazing. Advanced." But he struggled to find a way to express his thoughts. Raya seemed to understand. She pulled up an image of her species' standard treatment, a complex molecular restructuring process that required technology far beyond anything available on Earth. Then she pointed to her medication, then held up one finger. "One dose left." Tom nodded, then pulled up his own medical references. "But sometimes," he said, pointing to various human treatments for similar conditions, "simple is better." He showed her case studies of human doctors treating genetic disorders with combinations of basic medications and treatments. Cases where high-tech solutions had failed, but creative thinking had succeeded. Raya leaned forward, her large eyes widening as she absorbed the information. Using her tablet, she translated a key phrase: "different path." "Yes," Tom said, excited that she was following his thinking. "Your people tried to fix the genetic problem directly. But what if we treat the symptoms instead? Buy time." He pulled up more medical diagrams, showing how human doctors often managed complex conditions by treating individual symptoms when they couldn't cure the underlying cause. Raya's translator worked to keep up as he explained his ideas. Her medical knowledge was far advanced, but she had never considered this approach. Her people's medicine was so focused on perfect, complete cures that they sometimes missed simpler solutions. Tom's suggestion wasn't a cure, but it might keep her alive long enough to find one. As the morning wore on, they began experimenting. Tom carefully took samples of her remaining medication, analyzing its components with his basic equipment. Raya used her tablet to show him how the medicine worked, and together they looked for Earth-based substances that might have similar effects. The breakthrough came around noon. Tom had been comparing the molecular structure of Raya's medication with various human drugs when he noticed something familiar. A common human heart medication had a similar basic structure to part of her alien medicine. "Look," he said, pointing to the molecular diagrams side by side. "Not the same, but close. Maybe close enough." Raya studied the diagrams intently. Her tablet ran calculations, comparing the substances. Finally, it displayed a result that made her eyes light up. She pointed to the human medication, then to herself, then made a partial gesture with her hands. "It won't work as well as your medicine," Tom said, understanding her gesture. "Maybe 30% as effective. But better than zero," Raya's tablet translated. They spent the next few hours carefully testing their theory. Tom used all his medical training to calculate safe dosages, converting between alien and human measurements. Raya's medical knowledge helped them understand how her body would react to the human medication. As the sun began to set, they were ready to try their makeshift treatment. Raya held up her last dose of alien medication, then set it aside. She looked at Tom and nodded, trusting him completely. Tom prepared the human medication with steady hands, hoping their calculations were correct. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs in medicine came from taking chances. He just hoped this chance would pay off. Tom sat at his radio desk, microphone in hand, choosing his words carefully. "Dr. Maria, I need your help with a theoretical case." Static crackled through the speaker before his old medical school professor's voice came through. "Tom, it's been months since you called. What's on your mind?" In the bedroom, Raya slept fitfully. The human medication was working, but not well enough. They needed something more. That's why Tom had decided to take this risk. "I have a patient with an unusual genetic condition," he said, watching Raya through the doorway. "Similar to Benson's syndrome, but with some key differences." There was a pause on the other end. Dr. Maria had been his mentor through medical school, known for her unconventional approaches to difficult cases. If anyone would understand this situation, even without knowing all the details, it would be her. "Tell me more," she said finally. "What are the symptoms?" Tom described Rhea's condition in careful general terms, translating her alien biology into human medical language as best he could. He explained the treatment they'd attempted, watching the medical monitors they'd jerry-rigged from his equipment and her alien technology. "Interesting approach," Dr. Maria said when he finished. "But you're right. It's not enough. Have you considered combining it with enzyme therapy?" Tom grabbed his medical tablet, taking notes. For the next hour, he and Dr. Maria discussed various treatment options. She didn't ask why he couldn't bring the patient to a hospital or why he needed such specific advice. She just helped, the way she always had. "Send me the lab results when you can," she said finally. "And Tom, be careful. Whatever you're dealing with, just be careful." After ending the call, Tom returned to check on Rhea. Her eyes opened as he approached, glowing faintly in the dim light. She pointed to his notepad, questioning. "I talked to my old teacher," he explained, sitting beside her bed. "She gave me some ideas." He showed her his notes, sketching out Dr. Maria's suggestions. Rhea's tablet translated as they discussed each option. The combination of their technologies was strange but effective. His simple paper notes displayed in her holographic interface, her alien medical terms converted into basic English. "Look here," Tom said, pointing to a particular treatment combination. "If we mix the enzyme therapy with the medication we're already using, it might work better. Your body's not producing the right proteins, but what if we help it remember how?" Rhea studied the diagram he drew, then pulled up her own medical database. Her fingers moved quickly over the holographic display, comparing his primitive sketches with her advanced medical knowledge. The tablet translated her response. "Possible. Different from our methods. Simpler. But maybe better." Tom nodded. "Sometimes the old ways work best. Your people's medicine tries to fix everything at once. But humans, we learn to work with nature, not against it." They spent the next few hours preparing the new treatment. Tom combined the medicines carefully, using Rhea's scanner to check each step. The alien device's readings were far more detailed than his equipment, but he understood enough to know they were on the right track. "Ready?" he asked, holding up the prepared injection. Rhea nodded. Her hand found his and squeezed it. A very human gesture she must have learned from him. The trust in her eyes made his throat tight. Here was an alien being, far more advanced than him, putting her life in his hands. As he administered the new treatment, Tom thought about how far they'd come. Just days ago, they couldn't even communicate. Now they were breaking new medical ground together, combining the best of both their worlds. The monitor beeped steadily as the medicine entered her system. Both of them watched the readings, hoping this human approach to an alien problem would work. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs came not from advancing forward, but from looking back at what worked before. Now they just had to wait and see if they'd found the right balance between old and new, between human innovation and alien technology. Rhea's life depended on it. Morning sunlight filled the cabin as Rhea sat up in bed, her movements stronger than they had been in days. The combined treatment was working better than either of them had expected. On the bedside table, her alien tablet displayed steady vital signs alongside Tom's old medical monitor. "Time to explain everything." Rhea's tablet translated as she pulled up her medical database. "You should know the whole truth." Tom pulled up a chair, watching as holographic images filled the air between them. He saw a beautiful alien world with crystal cities and advanced medical centers. But as Rhea began to explain, he realized all that technology had created its own problems. "Our medicine became too perfect," the tablet translated. "Every treatment, exact. Every cure, complete. We forgot how to think differently." The images showed generations of her people becoming dependent on their advanced medical technology. When new diseases appeared, they created more complex treatments. When those treatments failed, they made even more complicated ones. "But you," Rhea pointed at Tom, then at his simple medical kit. "You work with what you have. You try new things. You think. Free. Tom understood. He pulled out his old medical textbooks, showing her centuries of human medical history. He showed her how doctors had used herbs before they had pills, how they had learned to set bones before they had x-rays, how they had discovered vaccines by watching milkmaids. We had to be creative, he explained, pointing to various pictures. We didn't have fancy machines. We had to understand how the body works, how it heals itself. Raya's eyes widened as she read about ancient human healers. Her tablet translated her amazement. Your people saved lives with leaves and bark, with needles and skin, with moldy bread. Tom laughed. Penicillin, one of our biggest discoveries, came from mold. Sometimes the best answers are the simple ones. Together, they compared their different approaches to medicine. Raya's people had technology that could rebuild bodies at the molecular level, but they had forgotten that sometimes the body knew best how to heal itself. It just needed the right help. Look here, Tom said, pulling up his notes from their treatment. We're not fighting your condition. We're helping your body remember how to fight it itself. Raya's tablet worked to translate more complex medical terms as they discussed the treatment. The human medications weren't as powerful as her people's, but they worked with her body's natural processes instead of trying to override them. Our doctors would not approve, Raya's tablet displayed, but her expression was amused. Too simple. Too primitive. But it's working, Tom pointed out, showing her the latest test results. The combination of human and alien approaches was doing something neither could do alone. As the day went on, Raya shared more about her people's medical history. Tom was amazed by their achievements, but also saw their blind spots. They had advanced so quickly that they had skipped important lessons about working with nature instead of against it. In medical school, Tom explained, they taught us that healing is a partnership between doctor and patient, between medicine and body, between science and nature. Rhea nodded slowly, understanding. Her people had forgotten this partnership in their rush to perfect medical science. They had tried to control everything instead of working with the body's own wisdom. Looking at her improved vital signs, Tom felt a surge of hope. Maybe this was why their paths had crossed. Not just to save Raya's life, but to show her people a different way of thinking about medicine. Your kind of healing, Raya's tablet translated as she reached for his hand. It is not just about fixing. It is about understanding. Outside the cabin window, leaves danced in the breeze, nature finding its own way, as it always had. Sometimes the most advanced solution was remembering the basics, a lesson both human and alien medicine could learn from. A week had passed since Raya's crash landing. The small cabin, once just Tom's quiet retreat, had become a unique medical laboratory where human creativity met alien technology. Today was the moment of truth. Time to run a complete scan of Rhea's condition. Ready? Tom asked, checking the strange combination of equipment they had set up. His old medical monitors were connected to Rhea's alien scanner through a system they had built together. Rhea nodded, her blue skin now healthy and glowing. The tremors in her hands had disappeared days ago, but they needed proof that their treatment was really working. She lay back on the examination table as Tom started the scan. Holographic images filled the air above them, showing Raya's internal systems in amazing detail. Tom had learned to read these alien medical displays over the past week. What he saw now made him catch his breath. Look, he said, pointing to the genetic markers they had been tracking. The degradation has stopped. Raya's tablet translated his words, and her large eyes widened. She sat up quickly, studying the readings. Her fingers moved rapidly over her medical database, comparing the results with her previous scans. The tablet translated her response. Impossible. The damage was permanent. My people tried for generations to stop it. But the evidence was right in front of them. The combination of treatments, human medications working with her body's natural processes, supported by her alien technology, had done something her people thought impossible. Not impossible, Tom said, smiling. Just unexpected. Sometimes the best solutions are the ones nobody thinks to try. They spent the next hour analyzing every detail of the scan. The human medications had helped Raya's body remember how to repair itself. Her alien technology, instead of trying to force a cure, now supported her natural healing. But how? Raya's tablet displayed. Our best medical minds could not solve this. Tom thought about it as he reviewed their treatment notes. Maybe that was the problem, he said slowly. Your people were so focused on finding the perfect solution that they missed the simple one. He pulled up images from human medical history, showing how many breakthrough discoveries had come from unexpected places. Sailors eating citrus fruits to prevent scurvy. Cowboys using mold on wounds before antibiotics were invented. Simple solutions that worked with nature instead of against it. Your people tried to rewrite the genetic code, Tom explained. We just helped your body remember how to read it correctly. As they studied the results, Tom noticed something else. The treatment wasn't just stopping the genetic damage. It was beginning to reverse it. Slowly, very slowly, but it was happening. Look here, he said, highlighting a section of the scan. Your body is actually healing the damaged genes, not through technology, but through its own natural processes. Raya's expression was one of wonder as she checked his findings. Her tablet translated her thoughts. All are advanced medicine. And the answer was to do less, not more. Tom nodded. Sometimes healing isn't about forcing a change. It's about removing the barriers that prevent natural healing. They spent the rest of the day documenting everything. Tom wrote detailed notes while Raya recorded all their data in her tablet. Together, they created something new, a bridge between human and alien medicine. My people will not believe this, Raya's tablet displayed. A primitive world found the answer. Not primitive, Tom corrected gently. Just different. Sometimes you need to look at old problems in new ways. As evening approached, they heard a distant sound that made them both freeze. The hum of alien engines. Raya's rescue ship had finally arrived. Tom felt a mix of emotions. Happy that Raya would live, sad that their time together was ending. But as he looked at their combined research, he knew this was just the beginning. Ready to show your people a new way of thinking about medicine? He asked. Raya's smile was answer enough. Together, they had done more than save one life. They had opened a door between two worlds' ways of healing. The alien rescue ship landed in the clearing near Tom's cabin, its silvery surface reflecting the sunset. 3 medical officers stepped out, their expressions changing from professional concern to shock when they saw Raya standing healthy and strong beside the human medic. Impossible, the lead medical officer said, his words translated by Raya's tablet. Our scan showed your condition was critical days ago. Raya smiled and handed them her medical records. It was critical. The tablet translated her response. Then I learned that sometimes the best medicine isn't the most advanced. The alien doctors gathered around her tablet, their expressions moving from disbelief to amazement as they reviewed the treatment data. They saw how the combination of simple human medications and their advanced technology had achieved what they thought impossible. But these treatments, one doctor said, pointing to Tom's notes, they're so basic, so primitive. Tom stepped forward. Sometimes primitive isn't a bad thing, he said, Raya's tablet translating. Your technology is amazing, but you forgot something important, how to work with nature instead of against it. The lead doctor studied Tom with new interest. You are a medical practitioner. The tablet translated his question. A wilderness medic, Tom replied. We learn to work with what we have, to understand how the body heals itself. For the next hour, Tom and Raya explained their treatment to the alien medical team. They showed how human medications had helped Raya's body remember its natural healing processes, while alien technology monitored and supported the healing instead of trying to force it. This could help thousands, the lead doctor finally said. Not just with this condition, but with many others. We became so focused on perfection that we lost sight of simplicity. Raya touched Tom's arm gently. I must go. her tablet translated. But this is not the end. It is a beginning. The lead doctor nodded in agreement. We would like to establish a medical exchange program, he said through the tablet. There is much we could learn from each other. Tom thought about all the human diseases that might be helped by alien technology and all the alien conditions that might benefit from human medical wisdom. I'd like that, he said. And I, Raya's tablet translated her words, will be the first instructor, teaching our doctors to think differently, to remember that healing is not just about technology, it is about understanding. The sun had set by the time they finished making arrangements. The alien doctors would return to their world with news of the breakthrough, while Tom would help set up the first human-alien medical research program. As Rhea prepared to board the rescue ship, she turned back to Tom one last time. Her tablet displayed her final words. You did more than save my life. You gave hope to thousands who thought they had none. Tom watched as the ship lifted off, its lights gleaming against the darkening sky. In his hand, he held a small alien medical device, a gift from Rhea. With it, he could continue their work, helping to bridge the gap between two worlds' ways of healing. Inside his cabin, Tom looked at their combined research notes one last time. Human drawings next to alien holograms. Simple herbs listed beside complex molecular structures. Two different approaches to medicine, each with something to teach the other. He thought about how far they'd come from that first frightening meeting after the crash. How trust and compassion had broken down barriers that technology alone could not. How sometimes the greatest advances came from taking a step back and seeing things in a new way. On his desk, the alien medical device glowed softly, already containing requests from both worlds for medical collaboration. Tomorrow, he would begin answering them. But tonight, he simply smiled, knowing that somewhere out there, Raya was doing the same. Because in the end, it wasn't about human medicine or alien technology. It was about hope, and hope, they had discovered, transcended all species.